I thought if I worked hard enough they would finally see me, not just as the youngest, not just as the daughter, but as a leader. I thought they'd see me as someone worthy of carrying on the family legacy. My name is Olivia Bailey. If the name sounds familiar, it is probably because of Bailey & Sons, the once famous luxury home design firm that made its mark along the East Coast. What most people do not realize is that the Sons in the company name was not just clever branding. It was a message, quiet but powerful. It meant this empire belonged to the men. As a child, I constantly trailed behind my father and older brothers on job sites and in model homes. While they held blueprints and made decisions, I was given clipboards and coffee runs. My ideas were often met with polite nods or condescending smiles. Ambitious, they would call me, like I was a puppy trying to climb a staircase. Eager, but not to be taken seriously. Still, I did not complain. I took on every internship, accepted every late-night shift, and worked every low-level job they handed me. I read contracts cover to cover, analyzed market trends, and knew the company's financials better than the CFO. By 26, I had an MBA, something no one else in the family had. By 27, I was managing entire regional projects. But titles are meaningless when no one believes you have earned them. When I first brought up succession planning during a board meeting, suggesting we begin preparing for future leadership, my father did not even let me finish. "You are not one of us, Olivia," he said loudly, his voice stopping the room cold. I blinked, stunned. "Excuse me." He did not look up. He just kept flipping through his notes like I was not even there. "This business was built by men. It is run by men. You are talented, yes, but this is not your place. You do not have the instinct." My oldest brother chuckled across the table. My mother stared at her hands. No one spoke up for me. Not even my uncle, who had privately told me more than once that I was the best shot this company had for a real future. "You are too emotional," my father added, as if he was offering a helpful critique. "You care too much about people, not enough about the bottom line. That is not leadership, Olivia. That is sentiment." I swallowed my pride. That meeting was supposed to be a milestone. I had spent weeks preparing a detailed 7-year growth plan, marketing strategy, and an expansion proposal for 4 new markets. But all they saw was a little girl playing dress-up at the big boys' table. Later that evening, I sat alone in the office I technically ran but was not officially given the title for. My father walked in without knocking. "You know," he said casually, "your brothers are not perfect, but they understand what it means to carry the Bailey name. You have always been more of a dreamer." I laughed, not because it was funny but because it was so predictable. "You mean someone with vision?" He narrowed his eyes. "No, I mean someone who thinks having ideas is the same thing as having power." He looked at me like I was nothing. "You were never the smart one. You just worked harder to make up for it." Then he left just like that. But that line stayed with me. "Pathetic girl. You were never the smart one." He meant it as an insult. But to me it became fuel. I sat in the quiet of the office, staring at my reflection on the dark screen of my laptop. The room was cold and dim, but for once I did not feel like crying. I felt wide awake, clearer than I had in a long time. If they did not want to make space for me at their table, then so be it. I was not going to beg. I was not going to fight for scraps anymore. I would walk away and build something better, something they could not ignore. One day, they would look back and regret ever underestimating me. That moment, though they did not realize it, was the last time they would speak to me like I did not belong. They had written me off. But I had already started writing a story of my own. You would think after everything my father said, I would finally give up and leave quietly. Maybe I should have. But a small part of me still believed that if I could prove myself just one more time, with something undeniably strong, they would finally see me. So I did what I had always done. I worked hard. I spent weeks developing a business proposal that could have launched Bailey & Sons into the future. I researched market trends, studied rising demographics, and followed digital shifts. I found an untapped opportunity: eco-friendly luxury homes with integrated smart technology. It was the next wave, and no one on the East Coast was doing it right yet. We could be the first. We could lead. I built everything from scratch: branding, projections, even mock-ups. I tapped into my MBA network for feedback and advice. I secured a presentation room at headquarters and sent formal invites to the executive team. I still remember how my hands trembled as I clicked through each slide. I remember the silence. No one made eye contact. And then came my father's smile. Not proud, not amused, just that closed-mouth smirk he gave people who did not know their place. When I finished, the room went still. I turned to my brothers. They leaned back in their chairs like they were waiting for dessert. My uncle yawned, completely disengaged. Then my father spoke. "Are you done?" he asked. He nodded. He sighed, then turned to Justin and my oldest brother. "You will not explain to your sister why that idea would bankrupt us in a year." Justin laughed. "Olivia, no offense, but this is not grad school. You cannot just toss buzzwords into a slideshow and call it a plan. Smart homes, green buildings. Who exactly do you think we are selling to, Elon Musk?" The room chuckled. But I was not joking. "The numbers do not lie," I said, my heart racing. "My instinct does," my father cut in, "and it tells me this is just a vanity project. If you want to play CEO, fine, but not here. This is a business, not your sandbox." He stood up. "You want to build something, go ahead. Start your own company. See how far that gets you. But do not come in here acting like you are one of us, because you are not. You never were." That phrase, "not one of us," hit harder than anything else. I looked around, waiting for someone to say something, anything. But all I saw were smirks and sideways glances. My mother was not even there. She rarely came to meetings anymore. I quietly gathered my things. As I reached the door, my younger brother Raymond leaned forward with a smirk. "Hey, if it does not work out, I heard an interior design firm is hiring. You could help them pick out curtains." Laughter followed me as I walked out, but I did not look back. Because right then, I knew they may have shut me out of their world, but I was going to build my own. And this time they would not be invited. Just like that, I knew this was not my family anymore. Not in the way that counted. I was not their daughter, their sister, or even their colleague. I was just someone carrying their last name like a label I did not deserve. I did not cry in front of them. But once I got home, I broke. The pain, the anger, the shame, it all came crashing down in waves. Years of being ignored, pushed aside, and told to be grateful for whatever little they gave me. Years of being made to feel small. I wanted to scream. I wanted to burn every bridge behind me. But I did not. Instead, I packed a bag. And the next morning, I left quietly, without saying a word. I walked away from their expectations, from a legacy that had never been mine to carry. I left the boardroom where I was never truly welcome. I stepped into the unknown. I moved to a new city where no one knew who I was. Where I was not Janet Bailey, the odd one out in a powerful family. I was just Janet, a woman with a plan, vision, and nothing left to lose. I rented a small apartment above a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and warm bread every morning. And there, at a tiny desk with my old laptop, I opened a blank document. No logo, no pressure, just me. The beginning of something they would never see coming. Being underestimated has a strange kind of power. When no one is watching, you can build without limits. No expectations, no noise, just freedom. In that cramped apartment with peeling paint and a water heater that made strange noises, I began building something that would one day change everything. I did not have their money, but I had something better, clarity. No more proving myself. No more waiting for approval. I was done with all of that. I named the company Lamora Designs. It was inspired by a faint star, one that is hard to see but strong and steady. That is how I saw myself. Quiet, often overlooked, but capable of something big. The early days were rough. I blew through my savings fast. I lived on instant noodles and barely slept. I pitched my services to anyone who would listen. Small builders, boutique developers, and even homeowners working on their dream spaces. Most said no, but a few said yes. And I treated those early projects like million-dollar deals. I poured everything into them. I offered smart, eco-friendly designs for clients who wanted modern, sustainable homes. It was a small niche, but the demand was real. I did it all: design, sourcing materials, managing contractors. I wore every hat because failure simply was not an option. I did not just want to succeed. I wanted to do better than them. And I wanted to do it my way. Within a year, I had a team of 5, a small studio, and a growing list of clients. We were not in the spotlight yet, but the right people were paying attention. Quietly, we were gaining traction. My family had no idea I was still in the game. They did not realize that what I had started was not just a new design firm. It was direct competition. I kept a close eye on Bailey & Sons. That was not hard. They were still making headlines, still acting like they owned the market. But they had not changed. They were stuck in old ways, ignoring how quickly the world was shifting. They were coasting on their name while the future moved on without them. So I got smart. I hired a former marketing lead from one of their rivals. Together, we built a brand that spoke directly to the clients my father had always ignored: young professionals, women-led households, and tech-savvy families who wanted homes that were smart, stylish, and sustainable. We made our style clean, simple, efficient, everything they were not. And slowly, quietly, we started becoming the name people whispered about. I did not stop when we launched. That was just the beginning. Quietly, we began bidding on mid-size commercial projects, the same ones my father's company used to win effortlessly. But times had changed. Now, they were losing to a no-name firm with fresh ideas, faster turnarounds, and a hunger they had not seen coming. They had no clue who we were. I preferred it that way. Behind the scenes, I started building something bigger. I reached out to the overlooked talent, the project managers, designers, and assistants who had been ignored for too long. People like me who were tired of being invisible. People who did not just want a seat at the table. They wanted a table where they actually belonged. One by one, they joined me. Our little firm began to shine brighter. And still no one noticed. About 20 months in, I found myself in a meeting with a high-profile client. They were choosing between Bailey & Sons and us. I had seen my father's proposal: safe, stiff, and outdated. Then they read ours. "Who are you?" the client asked, skimming through our pitch. "This is sharp. It is exciting. It is what I did not know I needed." I just smiled. Someone with something to prove. We won the contract. And by the end of that quarter, we had beaten Bailey & Sons on 4 major bids, each one dragging them further out of their comfort zone. Their name no longer had the weight it once did. Their reputation was slipping. And I was only getting started. Still, I stayed silent. I let them laugh. Let them underestimate us. I let them believe I had disappeared. Because by the time they figured out who they were really up against, it would be too late. They say pride comes before a fall. But in my father's case, pride built the fall brick by arrogant brick. From the outside, Bailey & Sons still looked untouchable. Glass towers, branded trucks, slick magazine ads. But I could see the cracks forming. The foundation was starting to rot. It began with a cancelled resort project in New Hampshire, a deal they thought was locked in. The client cited creative differences. But I knew the truth. We had pitched a better vision with smoother execution and lower costs. Then came the layoffs. First a few junior designers, then their longtime receptionist, then a project lead I used to work with, someone who once would have never left. He called me looking for a new place. I did not brag. I just sent over a contract. Welcome to Lamora. The real hit came 7 months later. Bailey lost a massive government contract to retrofit public buildings for energy efficiency, a job they thought was theirs without question. They did not even fight for it. They assumed the name alone would win. But the industry had shifted. Clients wanted innovation, adaptability, and purpose. We gave them all 3. Their press release tried to save face, blaming market shifts and competition. They never mentioned us, probably because they still did not know who us was. But they felt us getting closer. I could tell by the panic in their branding. Suddenly trendier, suddenly greener, suddenly trying too hard. They copied our hashtags, rushed out a tone-deaf sustainability campaign. I almost laughed. They were chasing a ghost. And the ghost was winning. Then came the rumors. Mismanagement, family fights, financial strain. I did not start them. I did not need to. Truth leaks on its own. And we just kept building. Fear has a way of creeping in quietly. My family was starting to panic, though no one would admit it out loud. One afternoon I walked into a trade expo. Not as a speaker or an exhibitor, just a quiet observer. I wanted to see how Bailey & Sons would present themselves now that they were no longer the biggest name in the room. Their booth was tucked near the back. It was smaller than usual, with fewer staff. My father was not there. But I saw Justin and Raymond trying to look confident, though the cracks showed. I kept my distance, close enough to observe, but far enough not to be recognized. A man approached their booth, a developer I had met just a few weeks earlier during a pitch. Justin handed him a brochure, smiling politely. The man glanced at it and said casually, "Oh, I am already talking with Lamora. They are doing some amazing work." Justin stiffened. "Lamora," he repeated. The man nodded. "You should check them out. They are really on to something." He walked away. Justin's smile vanished like a dropped mask. He turned to Raymond and asked, "Who the hell is Lamora?" I smiled quietly to myself. The reckoning had begun. But the real turning point came on a rainy Thursday morning. I was in my office reviewing our expansion plans when my assistant knocked, looking pale. "There is something you need to see," she said, handing me a tablet. On the screen was an article. The headline read, "Bailey & Sons faces major lawsuit over delayed projects and contract breach." It was not just a hit piece. It was an exposé. Missed deadlines, ballooning budgets, disorganization, and even internal conflict, all laid bare. There were anonymous sources quoted, some of whom were likely now part of Lamora. My father's empire was not just struggling. It was bleeding. And now the world could smell it. I did not celebrate. I did not gloat. I closed the article, leaned back in my chair, and exhaled slowly. This was never about revenge. It was about truth, proving that I was never the naive, emotional girl they thought I was. I was not playing dress-up in their world. I was building something real. While they were busy laughing at me, I was building a future without them. What they did not expect was that this future was about to go very public. Some moments divide your life into a before and after. For me, it happened on a quiet Monday morning. I was drinking black coffee, deep in mock-ups for a new eco-luxury development outside Portland, when my assistant rushed in. "Janet," she said breathlessly, holding up her phone. "You are trending." I blinked. She turned the screen toward me. There it was, Olivia Bailey, youngest female CEO in the country, revealed as founder of Lamora Designs. My heart stopped. It was not just a niche article. It was everywhere. Fan, Forbes, Business Insider. Even morning talk shows were picking it up. One headline stood out above the rest. The ghost founder, Lamora CEO, revealed to be the woman who outmaneuvered Bailey & Sons. I did not need to read the article. I already knew the story they were telling. The girl pushed out of her family's company, underestimated, ridiculed for dreaming big, and now the CEO of a booming design firm taking the industry by storm. There were quotes from old co-workers, clips from a private keynote I gave, and photos of me in front of Lamora's newest headquarters. Sleek, minimal, and everything Bailey & Sons had failed to become. Then came the finishing touch, a side-by-side comparison of their latest losses and our recent wins. It was not subtle. The media had drawn the lines for us. My phone would not stop ringing. Emails poured in. Congratulations from investors, journalists, and even people I had not heard from in years. The world had learned my name. And so had they. The message that hit me the hardest did not come from the media, investors, or old colleagues. It came from my mother. Just one sentence. "Your father saw the news. He has not spoken in an hour." I stared at my screen, not out of guilt and not even with satisfaction. Just silence. For years, he had told me I was not one of them. And for years, I believed that proving him wrong would somehow heal something in me. But in that moment, while the world celebrated everything he tried to bury, I realized something that changed everything. I did not need his approval anymore. Later that same day, my publicist called. Prime time interview has been requested. National coverage. Major network. Do you want to do it? She asked. Pause. I had not built Lamora to be seen. I built it to be free. But maybe now it was time to speak. He nodded. Let us do it. 5 days later, the interview aired. I wore a navy suit. Simple. Elegant. No logos, no agenda, no revenge speech. Just presence. The host opened with the story of Lamora's quiet rise. How a company with no legacy name became a force in eco-luxury real estate in less than 6 years. Then came the question everyone had been waiting for. Is it true you are the daughter of Eric Bailey? I smiled softly. Why hide it? She asked. I did not hide it, I replied. I just stopped apologizing for not being welcome. She blinked, caught off guard. And now you have built a company that outperformed theirs. It is not about outperforming, I said, though we both knew it was. It is about building something that reflects who I am, and giving others the chance to do the same. The interview ended with a standing ovation from the live audience. That night, Lamora's website crashed from the flood of traffic. We received over 285 partnership inquiries. Our stock jumped 17% in just 29 hours. Investors started whispering about global expansion. But while the world cheered my name, one place stayed quiet. The Bailey family group chat. Still active, still there, but not a single message. No sarcastic replies, no laughing emojis, just silence. Finally, a message popped up from Justin. You used us. I did not respond. Not then. What was there to say? They had used my silence to pretend I did not exist. Now the world knew better. The announcement had not changed everything because it made me powerful. It changed everything because it forced them to see what they had refused to see for so long. Me, Olivia Bailey. The one they said would never lead, never succeed. Just a dreamer destined to fade. But now I was the youngest female CEO in the country. And my next chapter was about to begin. Started with a letter. A crisp ivory envelope, embossed in gold. Bailey Family Annual Reunion. Saturday at 5 p.m. hosted at the estate. No note, no apology, just tradition. I stared at it for a long time. 6 years ago, they laughed me out of boardrooms. Told me I did not belong. Called me pathetic. Now they were inviting me back into the very house where I had always felt like a guest. Never a legacy. I had not stepped foot there since the day I walked away. But this year I said yes. Not for them. For me. That Saturday, I pulled up to the estate gates in a sleek black Rolls-Royce. The model Ghost. Fitting for the girl they tried to forget. They once tried to erase me. But the moment the guard saw my face, recognition lit up his eyes. Without hesitation, he lifted the gate. The long driveway was lined with luxury BMWs, Audis, and a classic Bentley. But mine stood alone. A single Rolls-Royce, gleaming with quiet power. I stepped out slowly, dressed in an ivory suit. No flashy logos. No need for drama. Just timeless elegance. The kind that does not need a shout to be heard. As I walked toward the grand entrance, the noise around me began to dim. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. They saw me, finally, but no one knew what to say. Inside, I walked through the foyer like I had always belonged there. Because I did, whether they accepted it or not. My mother was the first to approach. Her eyes softened, and for a brief moment, I saw something in them. Maybe regret. You look incredible, she whispered. Thank you, I said, then leaned in. Let us not pretend. She gave a small, weary smile. Fair enough. The party carried on. Familiar faces filled the room. Cousins, uncles, old family friends. Near the fireplace, my brothers froze as they saw me. Justin's jaw tightened. Raymond's eyes dropped to my wrist. Then to the keys in my hand. I did not stop for them. Instead, I walked through the house, straight to the back patio, where my father stood alone. He looked out across the lawn like a ruler staring at what was left of his fading empire. When he heard my footsteps, he turned, and for the first time in my life, Eric Bailey looked small. You came, he said, his voice softer than I remembered. I did. He studied me. You have made quite a name for yourself. I said nothing. He looked away, struggling. Janet, I may have been wrong. That nearly made me laugh. May have been. I did not come for apologies, I said calmly. Came for closure. He turned toward me again. The company is struggling. Your brothers, he stopped himself. We could use your help. I met his eyes, calm, clear. Not angry. Just done. You told me I would never be the smart one, I said softly. Just a foolish girl with too many ideas and no power. He did not deny it. I glanced back toward the house, the party, the crumbling legacy. And now you want my help. His lips parted, but I cut him off. I did not come to save you, Dad. I built something without you. While you mocked me, I created. While you doubted me, I became everything you said I would never be. He looked at me like he did not recognize the woman standing in front of him. Good, I said, turning to leave. But before I walked away, I looked over my shoulder one last time. You were right about one thing, I told him. I am nothing like you. And thank God for that. As I walked back through the house, the crowd parted like water. There were whispers and a few forced smiles. But none of it mattered. I was not there to be admired. I had nothing left to prove. I had already won. Outside, the Rolls-Royce shimmered in the late afternoon sun. I slid into the driver's seat, started the engine and looked back. Not at the house, but at the little girl I once was. The one who had begged to be seen. And I smiled. 'Cause she was not begging anymore. She was leading. From that moment forward, the world would never forget her name. Janet Bailey. No longer the outsider. No longer the overlooked. No longer the girl they tried to silence and dismiss. She became the woman who changed the narrative so that others like her would never be erased again. Thank you for watching this powerful story of resilience, legacy, and transformation. Janet Bailey's journey reminds us all that sometimes, the best way to lead is to walk away and build something on your own terms. She was once silenced, doubted, and dismissed. But today, she stands as proof that vision and strength can rewrite any destiny. If this story inspired you, do not forget to like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to our channel for more real stories that challenge, uplift, and empower. See you in the next one.